Hello, my friends. Today we're learning about Mציעא Kuf Yud Zayin. So we're going to start from Kuf Te Zayin on the base, the last few words. Boyer of Abba Bar Mamo. So what are we talking about over here? We're talking about over here someone who rented to someone an attic, and he said this attic that's on top of this house. So the house is committed to the attic, and now the ceiling of the bottom floor, that's the floor of the attic, got destroyed. So we said that the tenant from upstairs could move into the landlord's house downstairs. So Boyer of Abba Bar Memel, he has such a shaila. Kishudar Kufi Daino Modalef, when he moves downstairs, Levadoi Udar, Kedemikora, like at the attic, he lived by himself. He was a tenant without, no, he didn't share a flat. Or Idil Mashnev Dorim, or he lives together with the landlord. The Omalei, that the landlord's going to tell the tenant, very good, I committed my house to the rent, but I didn't commit it, I'm going to leave. So said the Gemara, if you're going to say Shneim Dorim Boy, they both live in it together, and that's a svara that the landlord doesn't need to leave. When he goes into the house, does he go into the main door of the house? Or does he have to go up through the outside steps that could take you to the attic, go into the attic, and then go back down into the house? Miomar, do we say Kedemikora, like when you lived in the attic? Mami Kora, like when you lived in the attic, Derech Gagin, you had to go to the second floor. Ashtanami Derech Gagin, now also you have to go through the outside steps. Or Dilma, maybe Motzi Omale, the tenant could tell the landlord, I was mekaber on myself that every time I go into my house, I go up one flight of stairs. Aliyah ve'irida, to go every time up and down, every time I want to go into my house, I'm not willing to accept. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me like the Svaros Luchor says, Amotzi the tenant could tell the landlord, Aliyah ve'irida I never accepted to go up and down every time. What's the din of Shti Aliyah Zual Gavzu? You have a bottom floor that's a house, and on top of the attic, and a third floor is also attic. Mao. If he lived in the top floor and the ceiling between the top floor and the second floor went damaged, Nochis Vidar Batachtoinus, he lives in the middle floor, in the middle attic, that's for sure. That we don't have no shaila. But what's the shaila? If he was a tenant in the middle floor, and now the floor between that floor and the ceiling of the bottom floor got damaged, Mao. The mislak legamri ba'alyoinu, does he have to move upstairs to the top attic? Or could he move downstairs? I rented you an attic, so go to the attic, or you have to go up another floor, that's your issue. Or Dilma, maybe the tenant could tell the landlord, I accepted myself to go up one set of floors. Is to go up two sets of floors. I never accepted on myself. So the Gemara, Teiku Tishbi Teretz Kushis Viboyes, Leo Novi is going to pashton our shilas. We learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi Oima, the bottom one has to give the ceiling. We're going to see in a second what exactly the ceiling is, but the top one has to give the maziva, the plaster. So the Gemara, my tikra, why is the tikra? Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Oma kinim v'sanoim. And Rashi explains that kinim v'sanoim is a type of like woven type of material that they make the ceiling, the slash floor out of. The satini, that's the name of a chocham. Omar Rab Shimon Lakish, the pshat is levochim. Levochim is a type of pieces of wood that's made out of Aryeh tree. Beloy pliga, it's not machloikis. Markasre, each one in their place. What would they make the ceiling slash the floor from? That's what they gave an example. Says the Gemara, Anu Beitrei, these two people, the Abu Dairi Chadiloi v'Chatatoi, one was living in the attic and one was living on the bottom floor. Ifchas ma'azivo. The ma'azivo, that's the plaster on the floor of the attic, went away. And Kimoshin Maya Eloi, when he'd wash water on the top floor in the attic, Asli Maskeletatoy would pour into the house instead of pouring out of the sponger hole, and would cause damage to the tenant downstairs. So what's it in? Rab Chia bar Avin Omar Elyoy mitakin, the one of the attic has to supply the plaster. Rabbi Loi, Bishur Rab Chia bar Rabbi Yossi Omar Tachtoy mitakin, no, the chiyuv of tikkun is on the bottom floor. And Rashi explains that it wasn't talking about a tenant, it was talking about two people, one owned the floor, the house, and one owned the attic. Said the Gemara of a Simon to remember who said what. V'Yosef urod Mitzrayim. Rab Chir bar Rabbi Yossi, or some people Gerus Rab Chir bar Rabbi Yosef, he says a tachtoin. So we could see Yosef Urad, Urad is Miloshan bottom, he's the one who says that the bottom one needs to fix it. Says the Gemara, Leimer Rab Chir bar Abba, Rabbi Loi, this machlokes that we just brought, we looked to the Rabbi Yosef, Rabbanon Kamifliki, it's the same machlokes of Rabbi Yosef and Rabbanon, of who has to fix the maziva. Is it obligation on the one on the bottom floor, or is it obligation of the person in the attic? He holds that if there's a mazik and he's causing damage to someone else, he has to keep away. So therefore the one on the top, he's causing damage with his water, he has to avoid it and put the plaster. So he, ala mazik mina nizak. And the one that says that the bottom person has to fix it, he holds he holds that the nizak has to keep away from the mazik. Said the Gemara, do you want to tell me that this is a machlokes in the Mishnah between Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi? Said the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Rabbanon in a zikin pligi, that's a machlokes who has to keep away from each other. But we know that they hold exactly the opposite. And we learned in the Mishnah, you have here a well and you have a tree, and the roots destroy the well. They make holes and make the wall fall. So it says, when you have a well and someone else wants to plant a tree, he has to keep away from the well. 25 amo. It's two types of trees that have very big roots, and one of them is a sycamore tree, and a chorov is a carob tree. 50 amo, you have to double the distance. 50 amo keep away. Doesn't matter if the burr is higher up or lower, you have to keep this distance away. If you first had the well and then the guy planted the tree, you cut down the tree, but you have to pay the value to the owner of the tree. But if the person planted the tree and only afterwards he built the well, you can't force him to cut the tree. Sofek zekodam, sofek zekodam. If we don't know which one came first, you leave the tree there. Rabbi Yossi argues, and it says even if we know that there was a well over here, so leilon before the tree, you don't cut the tree down. You're allowed to dig a well in your property, and I'm allowed to plant a tree. And if it causes you damage, it's your problem, because the nizak has to be marchik itself. Alma Rabbi Yossi Sova, we could see that Rabbi Yossi holds, and nizak larchik is atzmoy. Rabbanon Sarvei Lamazik larchik is atzmoy. So we could see that Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanon say exactly the opposite from what we're trying to say, that the machlokes of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanon in the Mishnah. So that can't be the machlokes. Says the Gemara, if you want to tell me that Rabbi Chir bar Abba and Rabbi Chir bar Rabbi Yossi argue they argue about the maziva, who has to do it, the upper tenant or the bottom tenant. That's a machlokes about the tree, who has to keep away, the mazik or the nizak. So by us in the Mishnah, what's the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanon? The strengthening of the ceiling is a machlokes. Rabbanon sabri maziva, the plastach zuki tikri. It's part of making the ceiling strong. Zuki tikra ala tachtun oilach zuki. Who's obligated to make the ceiling strong? The tenant downstairs. Rabbi Yossi holds maziva. The whole reason why he put plaster is ashvui gumois, so that it should be flat and nice. The floor in the attic. And to make the floor smooth, the one at the bottom, at the top, needs to take care of that. So that's a machlokes in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanon. What's the purpose of the plaster? Says the Gemara, I have a kasha. Is it so you wanted to say that that the shitta holds that the one at the bottom needs to put the maziva because the one at the top, he's a mazik, but the nizak needs to be marchikis atzmoi. And therefore, it's not his responsibility of the mazik to put the plaster. V'omar, is it so? V'omar Ravashi ki avina big Rav Kana. When I was learning in the yeshiva of Rav Kana, Abraham Minon, they used to say, Moider Rabbi Yossi, even though the Rabbi Yossi holds that the nizak is the one who has to keep away from the mazik, the giri delay from his own arrows. Rabbi Yossi doesn't say that if I shoot a gun and the bullet hits someone, I could say, oh, he should have kept away, because it's his own arrows. The only reason where Rabbi Yossi says it when it's only a groma, like with the tree, I plant the tree and later on the roots come. So what's pshat? How he's saying that the shit of Rabbi Yossi is that you could by the Mazivo, it goes like Rabbi Yossi that the Nizak has to be Marchik Atzmo, and that's why the one at the bottom has to do the Mazivo. So the Gemara, it's talking about the Paski Maya V'Adar Nofli. It's not talking about when the guy upstairs would pour water, it falls straight downstairs, and that's like his arrows. It first fall on the floor and then roll down to where there's a hole and only then drop downstairs. So it's not called like his arrow, it's called more like a groma, and therefore the Nizak has to keep himself away. Says a Mishnah, Bais V'Aliyah Sheshnaim, a Bais V'Aliyah that belongs the bottom to one person and the top to another person, Shenoflu, and they both fell. So the one in the attic wants to build back his attic, so he tells the guy downstairs, build your house, and then I'll build my attic on top. He doesn't want to build his house. Aryeh the one from the attic can build the house, and he lives in it until the bottom person who used to own the bottom house pays him his expenses, and then he moves out and builds his attic. In such a case, Rabbi Yehuda holds then you need to pay. So in such a case, even though that the other person's loy chosa because he never had a house and he built it for him, but he's nana from his house, and therefore you need to pay for him. So that's not a solution. So why is the solution? El bala aliyah boines abayis. The attic person builds a house. Ves aliyah, and he builds the attic as well. Umikares aliyah, and he makes a ceiling. And he makes a ceiling also to the attic. The Yoshe Babayis and the Gersel of Rashi is that he lives in the house. He stays in the house that the person downstairs shouldn't move in, and only when the person downstairs pays him for his expenses for the house that he built, then he moves up to the attic, and therefore it's not considered zenene because he's not nene, because he has an attic, he's not nene bichlal. And Tosfos asks on the Lechori, as I know, he doesn't have to go up the steps. Ein Tosfos. Said the Gemara, Kufi Dynamut base. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Bishloisha Mekoimish in 3 places in the Shas. Shanul and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda told us, Osula Adam Shiyene, a person's not allowed to have ano mimomen chaveroi, from his friend's moment without him wanting. Choda, the first one is Odetnan, what we just learned in the Mishnah, that you're not allowed to have a no, so that's why you have to build the attic and the first floor, and you're not allowed to just build the first floor. Idoch mai, what the other 2 places? The second place is, and it says, someone gave wool to the painter, Odom, to paint it red, Vitzova Shocher, and he painted black, Shocher, Vitzova Odom, he gave him, he painted black and he painted red. The painter was koinet b'shinui, and he only has to pay the value of wool. Rabbi Yehuda Oima, no. We give a knas to the painter. If the way went up in prices more than the expenses, he only gives the expenses. But if the expenses are more than the way went up in price, he gives them the way went up in value, if that's less than the expenses. So we can see that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're not allowed to have a no, and that's why we give him a knas and we tell him that you have to pay, you have to lose out. What is the third case? Reuven owed Shimon £1,000 and he paid off 500, and now he doesn't want it that Shimon will hold the document saying that he owes £1,000, because maybe tomorrow he's going to come and sue him for the full £1,000. So he gives the star to a third person, to Levi, and he tells him, if I don't pay the rest of the loan until this and this date, tell me story, give him the star and he'll claim from me the full of £1,000. Yes, man, came the time, and he didn't pay the £500 that he owes. Rabbi Yossi, you should give it back to the Malva, because that's the agreement between them. Rabbi Yehuda, you shouldn't give it back to him, because then he's going to claim extra £500 that it doesn't deserve, and therefore you're not allowed to nena mimom and chaveroi. Said the Gemara, Amai, how do we know that all these 3 cases, that's the reason? I'll give you other reasons. In each case, a different reason, and then there's no raya that also leno is mimom and chaveroi. Dilma ad kan loy kama Rabbi Yehuda, the only reason over here, elo mishum de ikesh kerusa. In the case of the house, you know why you're not allowed to live in the bottom floor? Because if you're going to live in the bottom floor, you're going to cause them damage. The walls are going to be black by the time the guy pays him for his expenses, and therefore he's going to lose out. In the case where the painter painted it the wrong color, because he changed from what he agreed with Nan, and we learned the one who changes loses. And the third case where he paid part of the loan, it's only a if. It's like a bet. If I won't pay, give it back, and then I have to pay everything. and Rabbi Yehuda is saying that you're not koine because asmachta loikonim, but it's not because osel le'enois mimom and chaveroi. So there's no raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds the osel le'enois mimom and chaveroi. Says the Gemara, Omar Avacha bar Adam Mishmei Deula, Tachtoin Abal Shanos Bagvil. If they're both willing to build the house and the attic, the guy downstairs wants to build his house, but he wants to change in the building materials. He wants to put gvil instead of gozes. So gvil is bricks that are not smoothing at the end, and it's thicker. So if he wants to put gvil instead of gozes, show him, we listen to it because it's stronger, it's better for the attic. The gozes, if he wants to put the thinner bricks, ain't shomim, we don't listen to him because then the attic's going to be weaker because the floor, the walls of the house are weaker. The kfisim, if he wants to put it's 2 layers of thin bricks and in the middle cement instead of just one thin layer, shomim lo because he's making it thicker. But levenim, if he wants to make only the thin layer, ain't shomim lo because he's going to make it weaker. The sachich barozim, if he wants to put the ceiling made out of a Aryeh tree that comes from the Lebanon, shomim lo because it's stronger. B'shikmim, but if he wants to make out of sycamore, ain't shomim because it makes it weaker. L'mayit b'chaloinos, if the guy downstairs wants to make less windows and there's going to be more wall and it's going to be stronger, shomim we listen to him. L'arbes b'chaloinos, to make more windows and make the wall weaker, ain't shomim the upstairs guy doesn't have to agree to that. Like Bia, he wants to make it high, ain't shomim because then he has to climb up more steps. L'mayit, to make his house lower and then the attic's going to be less steps, shomim we listen to him. Now we're saying the opposite case. What if the guy from the attic wanted to change? Elyon Sheba, so it's most of the things are the opposite. Elyon Sheba Leshanosh the gizis, to put the thicker stone to the thinner stone, shomloi, because it's less weight on the house downstairs. Begvil, to make a thicker stone, ain't shomloi, because then it's going to be heavier on the bottom floor. Bekfisim, the thicker wall, ain't shomloi, because it's going to make it heavier on the bottom floor. But levanim, the thinner wall, shomloi, because it's going to make it lighter. Barothim, if he wants to make a ceiling from a heavy wood, and shonloi, because it's going to make more heavy the bottom house. The shikmor first on sycamore, he wants to put that lighter than a rozim shonloi. The rabbis bechaloinas, if he wants to make more windows in the attic, shonloi, because now it's going to be less heavy on the bottom floor. But lemayit bechaloinas, to make less windows and more wall, and shonloi, because it's going to be heavier. Like Bia, if he wants to make the attic higher, and shonloi, we don't listen to him. Lemayit, to make it lower, we listen to it because then it's going to be less. And that's the only thing that's the same case for both people. If they want to make their wall lower, in both cases, bein the house, bein the attic, we listen to him because it makes it the whole structure stronger. Says the Gemara, so before, in the Mishnah we discussed if the guy in the bottom floor didn't want to build. Now, before we just discussed if they both do want to build, can they change? And now we're discussing if they both don't want to build, and now we have only a bare piece of land, what do we do with it? What do we do? The person who had the house takes 2 parts of the land, and the top 1/3. They argue only a quarter. Sorry, only the person downstairs gets more, he gets 3/4. And the person upstairs who had the attic only a quarter. Omar Rabba, go after Rab Nosson, who says that he split it 1/3 and 2/3. Why? The dainahu, he's a dain, and he goes deep into the din to know how to paskin. Kosova, the calculation he made was, kama mafsid aliyah babayis. If you have a house by itself, how much is it sold for? Such a price. And if you have with an attic that the attic belongs to someone else, the price goes down. How much? Tilsa, 1/3. He puts down the value in 1/3. Hilkoch. Therefore, that's Islay Tilsa, the person upstairs has 1/3 of the land, and that's the way Rab Nosson calculates his cheshbon to split the land 1/3 and 2/3. Today the learning is L'schus, my good friend Stav that's getting married, that his wedding should be happy, full of kedusha and full of happiness, and should be zoichet to make him bayis nem and bayis shol with lots of shalom bayis and be mikarav the geula, b'meira b'yomeinu amen.